500,000 just like we planned. Amanda will never think to look there. I froze outside the kitchen door. My stepfather Frank didn't know I was recording, and that sentence changed everything. My phone was trembling in my hands as his voice continued. The best part? Amanda thinks I'm the grieving widower. She has no idea I've been planning this since the day I married her mother. That's when I realized Frank hadn't just married my mother for love. He'd spent 8 years planning to rob her blind, and now he was coming for mine. But I had 3 recordings that would destroy him completely. 3 months ago, I thought my stepfather Frank was just a distant but decent man. I was so wrong it almost cost me everything. Mom died suddenly of a heart attack at 58. I was sobbing in the hospital corridor when the doctors delivered the news. Frank? He looked mildly inconvenienced, like someone had canceled his dinner reservation. At the funeral, I cried so hard I could barely breathe. Frank patted my shoulder awkwardly and said, "Your mother was a good woman, Amanda. We'll figure things out." His voice was flat, emotionless, like he was reading from a script. But it was the money comments that should have warned me. "Your mother's too generous for her own good," he'd say when Mom donated to charity. Or, "Some people just don't understand how to handle finances properly." Frank's background stories never stayed the same either. Sometimes he'd been in consulting, other times business development. When I asked for specifics, he'd wave it off. "Boring stuff, you wouldn't be interested." I should have been more interested. His friends were odd too. Eddie Briggs claimed to be in investment consulting, but drove a beat-up car and always needed money. "Frank's got good instincts about people with assets," Eddie once told me with a wink. Then there were Frank's ex-girlfriends. He'd mentioned women he'd helped out over the years, lonely widows who needed guidance with their finances. But the relationships always ended suddenly. "What happened with Margaret?" I once asked. "She decided to move to Florida. Needed a fresh start," Frank said casually. "I helped her liquidate some assets before she left." Why did they all need fresh starts after dating Frank? My mother Linda had been incredibly careful with money her entire life. She'd grown up poor, clipped coupons, and had spreadsheets for everything. She'd inherited $300,000 when her father sold his business, plus 30 years of teacher savings. So when Frank claimed she only had $85,000 left, my blood ran cold. But more alarming were the changes I'd noticed in Mom's final year. She'd become paranoid about her finances, constantly checking accounts, asking detailed questions about bank security. "Mom, is everything okay?" I'd asked last Christmas. "Just being careful, sweetheart. You can never be too sure." But her hands were shaking. I'd also noticed Frank interrogating Mom about her banking habits. "Did you go to the bank today, honey? What did you and the financial advisor discuss? Why do you need your old documents?" At the time, I thought he was being helpful. Now I realized he was gathering intelligence. The will reading felt like a punch to the gut. Frank got everything. The house, Mom's car, her jewelry, and what the lawyer claimed was $85,000 in savings. I got Mom's wedding ring and some photos. "Money comes and goes. Family memories last forever," Frank said without emotion, like he was reading from a teleprompter. $85,000. From a woman who'd saved every penny for 30 years and inherited $300,000 from her father. The numbers didn't add up, and Frank's complete lack of grief made my skin crawl. But that wasn't even his worst lie. 3 weeks after the funeral, I was cleaning out Mom's office when I found a small brass key hidden behind a picture frame. "Frank, what's this for?" His reaction was instant. His eyes got sharp and focused, like a predator spotting prey. "Oh, that old thing? Probably a safety deposit box from years ago. Your mother was always worried about keeping papers safe, probably empty now." But Frank's voice had that careful tone he used when lying. That night at dinner, Frank was unusually talkative, which always made me suspicious. "I've been thinking, Amanda. Maybe I should sell this house. Too many memories. I might travel for a while." "Where would you go?" "Somewhere warm, international, Costa Rica, Belize, places where a dollar goes further." International seemed very specific for someone just thinking out loud. The next morning, I drove to First National Bank where Mom had banked for 20 years. "Hi, I'm Amanda Tate. My mother Linda passed away recently. I found this key and wondered if she had a safety deposit box here." The bank manager, Mrs. Summers, checked her computer. "Yes, box 247. Then Mrs. Summers said something that made my blood freeze. Your mother was very concerned about account security in her final months. She asked a lot of questions about privacy and access procedures. Did she seem scared? Mrs. Summers hesitated. Your mother mentioned she was taking precautions against someone who was asking too many questions. She didn't say who. I thought I had time to figure things out. I didn't. I drove home planning to tell Frank about the safety deposit box, but as I walked toward the kitchen, I heard his voice from the living room, and he sounded completely different. Relaxed, casual, almost happy. I quickly opened my phone's recording app with trembling fingers and crept closer. No, she doesn't know about any of it, Frank was saying, his voice dripping with satisfaction. The girl's clueless. Linda kept her in the dark about the real money. Real money? My heart started pounding. 500,000 just like we planned. It's all in the account under Linda's maiden name, Morrison. Amanda will never think to look there. $500,000. $500,000. I gripped the door frame to keep from falling. My mother had $500,000 hidden while Frank convinced me she'd only left $85,000. Tomorrow I'll clean out the safety deposit box and transfer everything offshore. By Friday it'll all be untouchable. Frank actually chuckled, a sound that made me want to vomit. Linda was so paranoid about protecting her nest egg. She thought she was hiding it from me, but I've been tracking every move she made. My mother had been trying to protect her money from Frank. The best part? Amanda thinks I'm the sad widower. She has no idea I've been planning this since day one. 8 years of marriage, and now I'm about to cash out. Since day one, he'd never loved my mother. She was just a bank account with legs. What about the daughter? Amanda gets nothing. She's not my responsibility. Once I'm offshore, she can figure out her own life. Hot tears streamed down my face. This monster was planning to steal everything and leave me with nothing. Trust me, Eddie, this isn't my first time. Remember Margaret? Same approach, same results. Lonely woman with money, play house for a few years, then cash out when the timing's right. Frank was a professional predator. The difference is Linda had way more money than Margaret, and Amanda's old enough that I don't have to worry about legal complications. He'd calculated everything. Even my age was part of his equation. By next month, I'll be on a beach in Costa Rica with $500,000. Frank Castellano will be a widower who just couldn't handle the memories. Then Frank said something that made my blood boil. I didn't expect Linda to kick the bucket so soon, but when opportunity knocks, you answer. Her dying now actually works better. Opportunity. My mother's death was an opportunity to him. Amanda's been asking questions, but she's not smart enough to figure anything out. She still thinks I actually cared about her mother. Not smart enough. The call ended. I stood frozen, rage and heartbreak warring in my chest. But Frank had made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated the daughter of the woman he'd betrayed. And Frank was still lying. That night, I researched Frank's past relationships and found a devastating pattern. Frank targeted recently widowed women with money. I found social media posts from 3 different women, Margaret Williams, Dorothy Palmer, and Rebecca Chen, all mentioning their business consultant boyfriend Frank, who was helping them organize their finances. All 3 had mysteriously moved away within years of dating Frank. I found Margaret's daughter Melissa on Facebook and sent a message. Frank Castellano dated my mother too. She just passed away and I have concerns. Could we talk? She responded immediately. Oh my God, yes. I've been wondering if Frank was still running his con. Melissa's story was identical to mine. Frank had convinced her mother to move $300,000 into accounts only he could access. When Margaret threatened police, Frank returned $50,000 and disappeared. You have to stop him, Amanda. Frank's probably done this to other women too. He thought I was falling for his act, but I was about to turn hunter into prey. The next morning, I called Mrs. Summers. I think my stepfather is planning to steal money that belongs to me. Can you help? Come in immediately. At the bank, Mrs. Summers looked worried. Amanda, your mother opened a separate account in January. $500,000 that only you can access. My hands started shaking. She left specific instructions and this letter. My dearest Amanda, if you're reading this, something has happened to me and I'm worried about Frank. I love him, but he's been asking too many questions about my finances. I did research and found concerning patterns with other women. This money is yours and only yours. Trust your instincts, sweetheart. Don't let Frank manipulate you. I love you, Mom. Mom had known Frank was a con artist. Your stepfather came in yesterday asking about international wire transfers, Mrs. Summers added. I have a recording of Frank planning to steal this money, but I need more evidence. I don't think I can use that recording. I'd found out that because I just overheard the conversation and didn't take part in it, the courts wouldn't accept it as evidence. I need Frank to lie to me directly on tape. Can you help? I continued. That's when I outlined my trap. That afternoon, I called Frank with my phone recording. Frank, I've been thinking about Mom's finances. Were there any other accounts I should know about? No, Amanda, just what was in the will. Your mother wasn't much of a saver, unfortunately. Lie number 1 captured perfectly. What about that safety deposit box key? Like I said, probably empty. I'll handle it this week. Lie number 2. You'd tell me if there was more money somewhere, right? Amanda, your mother left what she left. Sometimes people don't plan as well as we hoped. Lie number 3. I feel like something's missing. Mom was so careful with money. Well, Frank said slowly, your mother had some financial challenges you weren't aware of. Bad investments, poor decisions. I tried to help, but she was stubborn. Every word was poison. Mom had never made a bad investment in her life. What kind of poor decisions? You know how women can be with money. Emotional decisions, listening to wrong advice. Perfect. Frank painting Mom as financially irresponsible to cover his theft. You helped her with these problems? Of course, that's what husbands do. I cleaned up what I could. Making himself the hero of his own lie. The arrogance in his voice was beautiful evidence, but I wasn't done destroying him yet. That evening, I drove to a coffee shop 15 minutes away. I needed to be somewhere safe for what I was about to do. My hands shook as I set up my phone to record and called Frank on video chat. He answered, looking relaxed on our living room couch. Amanda, why video? Where are you? Just getting coffee. Frank, I need complete honesty. I went to the bank today. Mrs. Summers said you were asking about international wire transfers. Frank's expression barely changed, but I caught the flash of calculation. Just trying to understand options for managing your mother's estate properly. The casual lie rolled off his tongue like butter. She also said Mom was worried about account security. Did she talk to you about that? Your mother was paranoid about online banking. I kept telling her security was fine, but she worried about everything. You know how women get about money. That patronizing tone made me want to scream. So you don't know about any hidden accounts? Frank's laugh was dismissive, confident. Amanda, if your mother had hidden money, don't you think I would have found it? I handled her finances for 8 years. There are no secrets. 8 years of lies, and he was still lying. But hypothetically, if there were hidden assets, you'd be entitled to them as her husband? Absolutely. His voice got harder, more possessive. Everything Linda owned became mine when she died. That's how marriage works, sweetheart. There it was, pure greed. What if I told you I found evidence of a secret account with a lot of money? Frank's eyes sharpened with unmistakable hunger. For a split second, his mask slipped completely. Really? How much money are we talking about? He was practically salivating. Actually, Frank, I was testing you. I wanted to see how you'd react. His expression cooled instantly. That's not funny, Amanda. You know what's not funny? Planning to steal my inheritance and disappear to Costa Rica? Frank's whole demeanor shifted. The fake stepfather vanished, replaced by something cold and predatory. Listen carefully, Amanda. His voice was low, threatening. Your mother married me. That makes everything she owned mine. You're not entitled to anything. Every word was a knife. She was a business arrangement, Amanda, a lonely woman who needed someone to manage her finances. I provided that service for 8 years, and now I'm collecting my fee. A business arrangement. My mother was just a business arrangement. Your mother was practical about what our relationship really was, even if she liked to pretend there was more. Frank leaned closer to his camera, menacing. If you think you can interfere with my legal right to her assets, you're going to be very disappointed. I've been planning this for months, Amanda. I know every account, every investment, every hiding place. That money is funding my retirement, whether you like it or not. He'd been planning this while I watched Mom decline. You think you're smart enough to outsmart me? I've been running these operations for 15 years. You're completely out of your league. Operations. My mother's marriage was an operation. Frank's smile turned vicious. By next week, I'll be living comfortably in a country without extradition treaties, and you'll be wondering what happened to your inheritance. But as Frank gloated, he had no idea every word was being recorded. "There's just one problem with your plan, Frank." "What's that, little girl?" "You're not as smart as you think you are." I held up my phone, showing the recording interface clearly. "I've been recording this entire conversation." The shock and rage that crossed Frank's face was absolutely beautiful. For the first time since Mom's funeral, he looked genuinely rattled. "You can't use that, it's illegal." "Actually, Frank, recording you threatening me is completely legal." The call ended as Frank hung up in panic. An hour later, my phone buzzed. "Amanda, I'm sorry we argued. Let's compromise. You can have personal items from the box. I'll handle financial paperwork. Meet me at 10 a.m. tomorrow." I stared at the message. Frank thought he could manipulate some naive girl into giving up her inheritance for trinkets. He had no idea what was waiting for him. The next morning, Frank was vibrating with greed as Mrs. Summers led us to the safety deposit box. I could see him mentally calculating his Costa Rican beach house. Mrs. Summers opened box 247. Inside were documents, bank statements, and a thick folder labeled Frank Castellano Financial History. Frank's face went from excited to white to green in 3 seconds. The folder contained everything Mom had discovered. Complaints from Margaret, Dorothy, and Rebecca detailing Frank's financial manipulation. Bank records showing his pattern of asset stripping. Documentation of his various fake business consulting schemes. My mother had been building a case against him. "Frank," I said, my voice steady and cold, "care to explain these?" "I don't know what this is," he stammered, his confidence shattered. "This is harassment." "Actually, I have 3 recordings that tell a different story." I pulled out my phone and played the first recording, Frank's conversation with Eddie about stealing the money. 500,000, just like we planned. Amanda will never think to look there. Frank's own voice filled the room, condemning him. Mrs. Summers gasped. "Mr. Castellano, you plan to steal money belonging to Miss Tate?" "That's out of context." I played the second recording where Frank lied about Mom having hidden money. "Interesting. We just heard you planning to steal 500,000. So, which is it, Frank?" His mouth opened and closed like a dying fish. Then I played the final recording, Frank calling my mother a business arrangement and threatening to take everything. "Mr. Castellano," Mrs. Summers said, her voice shaking with anger, "I'm calling the police immediately." Frank completely lost it. "You think you're so clever?" he screamed, his face purple. "I spent 8 miserable years being nice to your boring mother. Do you know what it's like listening to someone talk about their meaningless students every day?" The security guard stepped forward, but Frank wasn't done destroying himself. "I earned that money. 8 years of pretending to care about her pathetic hobbies. She was the most tedious woman alive." Every word was being recorded by multiple people. "And you," he snarled at Mrs. Summers, "had no right to hide that account. Everything she had belongs to me." That's when the police walked in. "Frank Castellano, you're under arrest for attempted theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, and elder financial abuse." As they cuffed him, Frank looked at me with pure hatred. "You think you've won? I'll fight this in court. I'll drag you through hell." I smiled, the first genuine smile since Mom died. "Good luck with that, Frank. I hope you like orange jumpsuits." The aftermath was swift and beautiful. Frank was convicted of fraud, attempted theft, and running a con operation targeting widows. My 3 recordings were key evidence proving his intent and pattern. Margaret, Dorothy, and Rebecca all testified against him. "Frank Castellano is a predator," Margaret said. "He targets lonely women, gains their trust, then steals everything before moving on." During sentencing, I had my turn to speak. "Your Honor, Frank called my mother boring and tedious. But my mother touched thousands of lives through teaching. She raised me to be strong and smart. Everything good about me came from the woman Frank saw as a paycheck." The judge sentenced Frank to 12 years in prison and full restitution. As they led Frank away, he looked at me one last time. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Smarter than you gave me credit for." Mom's real legacy. Today, I live in a beautiful house bought with Mom's inheritance. Frank called her life boring, but I celebrate everything he couldn't appreciate. I started the Linda Tate Foundation for Financial Elder Protection. We help families recognize predators and provide resources for reporting elder abuse. The most satisfying moment came when Frank sent a letter from prison requesting commissary money. My response was simple. "Dear Frank, I'm using Mom's money to help other families avoid predators like you. I also endowed a scholarship called the Linda Tate Memorial Teaching Award. You know, celebrating all those boring qualities you couldn't appreciate. Hope prison food is everything you deserve. Amanda. I never heard back. Frank thought he was running the perfect long con, but Mom was playing a longer game and she won. He called me naive and said I'd never figure out his scheme. But in the end, I got everything he wanted, and he got exactly what he deserved. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting someone destroy themselves with their own words. But what do you think? Did Frank deserve the money? After all, they were married. Let me know in the comments and don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Thanks.